Barclay Sound and Broken Group areas. Let's get back to our discussions as we continue with Karla Robison. She's the Environmental and Emergency Service Manager for the district, and she's on the phone line today. So when you get out in the helicopter, and some of this is dumped out onto this barge, and you also get some overflight of some of these areas, how much stuff do you see actually floating out there that you know is eventually going to come ashore within the next few weeks?
You know, hardly ever. It's really rare that you actually see marine debris in the ocean. You see the odd barrel or large piece of styrofoam floating, or, you know, if you get into some coves and you're closer to shore and there's large logs and seaweed, yeah, you'll see the odd water bottle or plastic bottle and plastic pieces floating around. But generally, out in the open ocean, you're not seeing very much. It's a vast, big blue body of water, and it's sort of like a needle in the haystack. But those islands and shorelines, they definitely comb that debris out, and it gets littered onto the shorelines. I've lived in this unique community now for about 8 years. What makes it so special here is the community spirit and awesome landscape that surrounds this area. We've got high mountain ranges to rugged coastlines, old-growth forests, and beautiful sandy beaches. Yeah, it's kind of interesting actually. I grew up in the prairies and didn't see the ocean until I was 19 years old. I've always been a water baby, so I swam competitively from an early age, and I skateboarded and snowboarded. And when I started seeing surfing on films and in magazines as a teenager, I knew that it was a natural sort of evolution of all the sports that I really liked, and I was pretty stoked when I finally got to do it. That's Wendy. That's the lady you want to interview right there. I don't know if she recognized me. She's back. That's good. Yeah, she's a pinniped scientist. That's who I went out with and did entanglements, like surveys, and really awesome.
Probably the worst situation or the worst entanglement I've seen was with a sea lion, and it was actually a sea lion that we saw here in Ucluelet Harbor. It was a California sea lion, and it had hauled out on one of the fish plant docks. So a lot of people had seen it, and it was called into Fisheries Oceans Canada as well as the aquarium. And unfortunately, there's a lot of risk factors in trying to help an entangled animal. And one of the limitations is that these animals can move, and this animal did move off before it could be helped. Several months later, it was seen here in the harbor again. At this point, it had other damage to its body as well, in addition to the entanglement, which was several inches deep. It was just awful to see. And then this colleague and I that we do sea lion surveys together, he saw the same individual north of Clayoquot Sound in Nootka Sound about 2 months after it was last seen here in the harbor, and it was even in worse condition. And it was just terrible to see. It was intense suffering and actually brought tears to my eyes. So that's one of the motivating factors for me to try to do something to minimize the type of or the amount of marine debris that we have in the ocean, trying to create awareness for people to snip these items. All it takes is like a second to take scissors and to snip these, or really any kind of loop. Helped me got me more motivated to encourage people to call in these sightings, because if we don't know about the sightings, then we can't do anything about it. So it's really important for people to call them in as well. So unfortunately, that animal did not make it. A lot of them don't, but there are a few that we can help. And I think the bigger picture, or the most important message, is prevention. So, you know, losing the loop is the mantra that we've been using, just to take scissors and cut any kind of loop to help protect the wildlife, and then disposing of debris appropriately in garbage bins.
Go for a swim, anyone?
Whoa. We need ready to go.
Okay, you got a rock right straight ahead of you, but there's a bit of a channel to the left here. I'd lift your motor up. It's actually fairly deep, but you have a bit of a channel right here. Go that way. Go through the water. Throwing debris at your friend. Several boat loads of debris. Okay, so right now we're located just south of Ucluelet at the entrance of Ucluelet's harbor. And in the last couple hours, we've managed to clean up this much material in a very rocky shoreline. Primarily the material was located in cove-type beaches. We call them hotspots. It's where material gets sort of funneled into these steeper coves and gets pushed back into the trees. And we've been out here for about 4 hours now, and we've managed to clean up this much times 3. Hi Chris, how are you? Good, good. Things are going well. Yeah, we're getting there. I think we're getting close to about 50 super sacks. And got boats lined up for the week. Got a really good marine debris team that's out there every day. And yeah, I've got helicopter logistics getting sorted as well at the moment. So yeah, thanks for just that I have a company that's interested in fuel in an appropriate location and just a game plan basically set up. We've got 3 main central super sack locations. So when the barge comes through, it'll basically be in 2 geographical areas where we'll need the barge to be to longline to. Yeah, so I just spoke with Chris Pallister. He's the president and founder of Gulf of Alaska Keeper, which is a nonprofit corporation that has been doing marine debris removal since 2000. So it's pretty exciting to be able to team up with him on this large-scale marine debris removal project. On top of all of the debris that he's collected over the last couple of years with the Japanese funding, there's also been 3 state parks that have also received funding, and so they've put their debris on the barge, as well as some other organizations. Oh, look at this in here. Look at that hot spot. There. Yeah, that is where we want to go. Look at that. That will have a lot of material. If we can.
that's where we're going to be going.
Sure.
So, how do you feel about putting your vessel in the middle?
Yeah.
Between us and the rock, we pass the stuff from the stern over to your boat and to them onto shore.
My name is Pete Clarkson, and I make art from marine debris. And I also work at the national park here at Pacific Rim National Park. So it was amazing when I first moved here. I came from another national park, and I was amazed to see how much garbage there was on the shore here. It was very disappointing to see. So the more I learned about it, the more interested I got in finding other ways to use it. And I was really fortunate. I have found great interest in making art with some of the material that we find here. So the first place I bring all the material, and this is all things I've collected just this winter, you know. Lots of bits of broken plastic, probably from the Japanese tsunami. But these are the types of things that I like to collect, things that have lots of color with them. That you know, I find I can really make a lot of use of for art. So this is kind of have, you know, a funny shape, you know, kind of looks like a person or something. I don't know. This is why I collect that. So once I clean it all, then I move it back into the back here and store it. So I try to store it in kind of a way that, you know, I'll find it again.
Yeah.
Because it's it can be really difficult, you know.
Organized.
Yeah. And there is a bit of a method to it. So, you know, I keep a lot of the plastic outside here because it doesn't matter if it gets rained on. Then here's all the painted wood probably from a lot from boats, different pieces of metal, but different things that, you know, I've collected because I like the way they're weathered and the colors on them that I can use. You know, a constant theme for sure is, you know, the effects of this material on the ocean, the fact that it is out in the ocean. I think that always amazes people. When I make my work, I try to present it that way so that when you first see it, it's like when you find these pieces on the shore, you know, they're often attractive and they're colorful, they draw you in, you're kind of curious, what is this? And then when you see it, you know, you may have some, oh, this is kind of cool, maybe I could use this. And then, you know, that final thought is, wow, well, what's it doing here? It's garbage, it shouldn't be here. And so I try to make my pieces sort of almost like that same process. So when you first see it, it looks attractive, it draws you in, you're interested, gets your curiosity. And the more you explore, the more you realize, wait a minute, this is all garbage from the beach, and you go through that same discovery process. So I try to do that in my work, and you know, hopefully people see it, see a bit of themselves and a bit of their own life in the materials that I'm using. And because we're all guilty, you know, we're all consumers, and unfortunately a lot of the material that we do consume ends up in the ocean and littering the shores and affecting wildlife and affecting the environment. So I guess it's a challenge for everyone to look at their own lives and say, you know, how can I help reduce this problem?
Surfing is a culture. It connects people with nature and a certain rhythm of life. Depending on what the tides, winds, swells are doing will determine what you're doing that day and possibly that week. So for example, if there's a really good swell, there's a sense of urgency to get out there, have some fun, connect with nature, and be part of something that's really special.
We did like 6 or 7. Usually I don't have any trouble judging the depth, but sometimes if I'm, in Salal and things like that start moving with the downwash, I have trouble telling exactly where it is in relation to the ground. So the signal, if you want it to come down, this is a signal for me to keep bringing it down. And when it's at a good height or where you want it, just wave it off like that. And when you get it hooked and it's secure, just stand back and give me give me a wave and then find a spot to clear. It's going to be pretty obvious which direction I'm going to fly it.
So the heaviest bags are located at Site 3. There's this really large green net that these guys worked really hard at to chop up with serrated knives for hours on end. One bag's probably about 500 pounds.
Yeah.
We should start at 3 and then go pick up the other bags.
Yep.
That'll free me up because I gotta go do something with this boat.
Right.
And it's slow. I'm gonna be an hour.
I'm going to Wower with you, right? I'll
Yeah.
just follow you back into the harbor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just drop it off and we'll go back out.
Had a specialized cleanup team working extensively for the last couple of weeks to try to collect as much material as possible in preparation for the barge. So we've got over 100 loads of debris to take to the barge today.
A seemingly pristine beach in the wilderness of Barkley Sound near Ucluelet until you look closer. Within just a few weeks, a specialized cleanup team has gathered more than 20 tons of garbage, now destined for a waiting barge.
The barge currently has over 3,300 super sacks. A super sack is a 1-ton agriculture bag that is basically filled with all sorts of marine debris, primarily styrofoam and plastics.
Ucluelet is the only place in BC taking part in the international cleanup effort. The barge and its crew have spent the last few weeks picking up debris collected along several beaches in Alaska. For these remote areas, it is really the only way to do large-scale removal.
This barge is on its way to Seattle, Washington for recycling, and what can't be recycled there will be taken by train to Oregon for landfilling.
It's hard to determine just how much of the debris comes from the Japan tsunami, but the Alaskan group leading the project says the volume has increased 50% since 2011, and more than 4 years later, it keeps coming in.
I feel that the ocean dissolves boundaries and it shows us how we're all connected. Marine debris is a good example of that. So when we find items that wash upon our shores from other areas of the world, it signifies how truly connected we are and how our actions have an impact. Our oceans really need our help, and we all have a part to play. We can create change within ourselves and our communities, which will help generate the much needed change in the world.